Hello, everybody. Dan Turbyville, Powerhouse Fence Show. This is the second time of me trying to do this today, and the first one I messed up and had to start over. So hopefully this is better. Today, the title of the episode is You Are Enough to Make a Difference. So I'm going to share a few stories, some things that happened to me in the past weeks, in the past months, and just kind of talk about, I don't know, reactions and uh, kind of how people acted in those scenarios, which was interesting to me, right? So we'll get into that a little bit, and I'll just share my stories. So we are sponsored by Memphis Fence Company, MFC Manufacturing, and Simpalo, and we have a few partners up there. The Thornton Fence Consulting Group is our first partner. Tony and his team offer an array of consulting and training. They have a lot of resources on their website for the fence industry. They recently launched an online education deal through School. It's Skool. So it has a bunch of their content posted on there, still adding more things. Other people are putting content on, so you can check that out. We have Fence News. They are a fence industry publication. We really like them. They're good people. They put out a magazine. It's really big with all the latest industry trends and news, and they do different types of stories and cover, different topics, right? And then we have EZG Manufacturing. They make the big orange attachments that you've probably seen at skid steers at trade shows, and they make different chain link, barbed wire, field fence dispensers, concrete hoppers, and mixers, things like that. We use their equipment. We like it, and so we put their logo up there. I am live. The phone number is scrolling on the bottom, 901-878-4987 if you'd like to call in during the show and talk if you have any questions or would like to add anything to the story. If not, feel free to call in call anytime you want. That number will normally ring to me, and we can have whatever conversation you'd like. Thank you all for being here. This is the reason we do it, is for you. And so if you have any ideas or questions or requests for topics or guests or anything else like that, let us know, and we'll do our best to try to make that happen. Again, you can call me at the phone number scrolling at the bottom of the screen, or you can, reach out to us through social media or email or whatever works. So if you listened to the show a few weeks ago, I did an episode that was called "Did I Mess This Up?" And I was talking about a situation that I had with a project, and it just got really messy. And so right now we're working on bidding the job again. We're still talking to the client. And so apparently didn't mess it up too bad. The job did get a lot more complicated, but it is still a thing. We're still talking about it. So I guess it all kind of so far has worked out in the end. I wanted to give a shout out to Midwest Fence Supply in Indianapolis. I got a quote from them today on something, and I just happened to think of them and call them and say, "Hey, I'm looking for this weird thing and it has to be done really quick. Could you help?" And they did. And they sent me a quote, and I was actually pretty surprised by the quote that I got from them, to be honest with you. I thought it would be, you know, I thought it would be more expensive than it was, basically. And so it was competitive, and I was surprised, and they jumped right on it and they helped me out. So I appreciate that. Having said all of that, let's get into the show. And I'll say, kindness costs nothing but means everything. Just kind of stuck that little quote in there at the beginning. I don't have a source for it, it is unknown. But story number one is this Make a Wish fundraiser we've been doing. I know. I'm not here to, I've talked about it a lot. I understand. But this is the first story that I have to tell. And so if you haven't heard about it, well, cool. And if you have, sorry, hang in there for a minute and I'll get past it. As an update, we did send our contribution. So the commitment that we made with Make a Wish was we were going to put in $10,000, which is the average cost of granting a wish. And we also simultaneously launched a fundraiser to try to raise another $10,000 uh, between our customers and vendors and the fence industry as a whole, like whoever wanted to contribute, right? And we intend to leave that fundraiser going. The link should be in the description of this show still. So if you did want to donate, you still can. And like I said, I think we'll just leave it going. I don't know if there's a cutoff and they're going to say that's enough or whatever. Uh, a lot of people have seen us talk about that, right? Um, I would say at least a few thousand people have seen post on social media or seen this show or whatever and know that we have had this make a wish campaign fundraiser going. We've added it in our email signatures. We have all of our guys when they're out installing normally wear orange shirts. And so when we got the orange shirts made this spring, we had little QR codes and it said, "Hey, we proudly support Make a Wish" or whatever on the sleeves. And so, I mean, we have QR codes on the shirt. We have QR codes around the office. So any customers or vendors or anybody that walks in everyone's exposed to it, right? We pushed it everywhere we could think of through social media. I mean, anything we could think of. Um, and I mean, and we've talked about it so much here on the show that some listeners may have already stopped listening to this show at this point because they don't want to hear about it again. But I mean, it was weird when we started this thing off. I remember talking to our representative from Make a Wish. I forget what her title is. And she's like, "Well, I'd kind of set the goal a little low." She's like, "Maybe you want to go for like 2,500 or 5,000 or maybe she set the goal at 1,500 or something when we first started." And I went in and edited the goal on the fundraiser website and I changed it to 10,000. And I was like, "Nah, it's not going to be that hard. Like, we'll get some people to contribute and we'll come up with 10 grand and it'll be easy." And, she was like, okay, well, don't get discouraged." Right? I remember her telling me that, "Don't get discouraged." So as of today, 5 people have donated $455. And $150 of that was from one of our own team members. Make-A-Wish came here and they did a presentation, spent 30, 45 minutes, something like that, doing a presentation, trying to get, everybody on board and making sure everybody knew what they did and all that. And one of the people on our team walked over to her and handed her $150 while she was here. But including that, 5 people, $455. And I really didn't think it would be that hard. Right, I thought that I would be able to just put this fundraiser out, and I thought things would happen, and it was shockingly difficult to get people to contribute to it. Even though, I mean, the only reason that I did it and would even put it out is if I think it's a good cause. If you haven't figured that out about me, like the partners that I talk about that are up here on the top of the screen, I think that they do a good job, and I think that they offer solid products or services or whatever that is. And that's the only reason that I talk about them, right? Like I would not have allow someone to sponsor the show if I didn't believe in what they were doing. I would not contribute or be a part of a fundraiser if I did not believe in the cause of the fundraiser. And so, that was the reason that I did it. So I personally think it's a good cause, right? And man, I was so recently, this is my human side of it, right? And this is the part of it that really ties into today's subject is my human part. I was recently talking to somebody and they asked me how it was going. And I was like, "Man, it's going terrible." Like I was all bummed out, beaten up, I don't know, humans. And I was like, "I don't understand why I mean, why won't somebody go donate $1, $10, $5, whatever?" And like I said, I was kind of unhappy and bummed out about it. And I was experiencing, some human flaws, right? Like I said, by being all upset about it. And he said, "Man, don't you know people are just busy?" He said, "It's not a reflection of people's heart. It's a reflection of society that we live in today in the way that everything is just go, 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 go. Like people, not that people don't believe in it or not that people don't support it or anything else, But he said getting a person to stop and take the time to go do something, that's where the challenge comes in. And I said, we do live in this always hurry, rush, kind of got to get here, got to get there, do this, do that mentality. And that old saying, like, stop and smell the roses. Well, we don't really do that kind of stuff that much, right? Like, we're always going. I mean, even myself, like, I carry my phone around with me all the time. We went on vacation last week. Really awesome time. I'll tell you about it for just a second, if that's okay. All right, cool. So we went to Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky. And if you're familiar with it, cool. If not, there's Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley, which are run basically parallel to one another. And there's a giant area in between them called Land Between the Lakes. And I think it's all like, I don't know, state park, federal park, something like that. Like it's some sort of government park land in there. Uh, and I've been there before when I was a kid, but I really enjoyed it. I wanted to go there because they have like a off-road, they call it an OHV area, right? So you can go ride like Jeeps and side by sides and dirt bikes and four wheelers and stuff like that. They have a bunch of trails for it that the government, whoever, maintains. And so we went there kind of as like, just to go ride. We stayed in a house on the lake. So we got to fish off the dock, do all that stuff. We got to go ride the trails. There's a bunch of maybe like forest roads, or I don't even know what you call them, but they're like partially maintained dirt and gravel and mud roads that just go out through the wilderness. And so, I mean, we just took my truck. One day we were driving by and I was like, hey, I just so happened to look at Onyx and I was like, what are these roads? And so, I mean, we just turned down one of them and we wound up driving miles out through the forest and didn't see anyone. And it was just it was cool, right? Just to be out in the wilderness. But yeah, so we did that. I mean, rented a boat, got to go out and cruise around on the lake for a while. Got to, like I said, fish off the dock at the house. We went to like an 1850s farm. So it's actually a working farm ish, from 1850. And they got a little bit of livestock, a little farm garden kind of area set up. They have a blacksmith shop out there. So it's kind of like, you get to experience what life would have been like in 1850, but really neat place. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. So now I don't remember what else. Oh, and so back to the whole always in a hurry, in a rush, all of that stuff. Man, I took I took Starlink with me. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be out there and like something happen and not be able to connect to the world. I mean, we were in a house and it like the listing of the house said Wi-Fi in public areas, or it was just kind of really wasn't really clear. We sent a message and said, hey, is there Wi-Fi in the house or not? They didn't respond. Whatever. We took Starlink with us. And so I mean, there's just an example of like how we're always connected and we're always in a hurry and we're always in a rush. And you know, in order for us to slow down and help people, like we first have to slow down, right? Isaac Alexander, thanks for stopping by, sir. And so, I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone on this thing, right? Sometimes I'll, be on social media or wherever, and I'll see like a GoFundMe where something happened to someone in the fence industry, and yeah, sometimes I stop and take enough time to make a donation or something like that, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, oh no, I don't have time for that right now, And it's just funny that's how we are. But I thought about what he said, and I said, man, maybe he's got a point, right? And I thought about myself because that's what I try to do. I try to think like, what do I do? And so I realized pretty quickly I've been in situations before where I saw someone and I knew that they needed help, and I was in too big of a hurry to take the time out of my life to help them. Right? I wouldn't stop what I was doing to spend enough time to help somebody that was in need. And immediately, a story that comes to mind is I remember being in the grocery store one time and I noticed a lady like two or three aisles over. And, I think she was putting some stuff back or struggling to pay for it or whatever that was. And I didn't do anything. Right. And I'm not to like be boastful or whatever, but, like, I could have walked over there and I could have helped her pay for the stuff, right? I mean, I could have just stuck my credit card in. I could have just gone over and handed her some money or whatever. Like, I could have helped, right? And I was just in such a hurry to do whatever I needed to do that I didn't. And I I beat myself up a while over that scenario, and that's why it immediately popped into my mind whenever I was thinking through this. I could distinctly remember this day. And I remember I told my wife about it and I was like, "Man, I really should have done at least offered to do something, right?" And she said, "Well, don't worry. You'll find yourself in that situation again and you know now to help." And I promise you, I was in the exact situation again. And this lady, she had a few kids with her, and I suspect that they were adopted or grandkids or, something like that. She didn't seem to be the right age to have that age of children, I'll just say. And so she was at the checkout and like she was taking stuff off of the thing and putting it back. And I kind of just eased over to her and I was like, I mean, would you allow me to help you pay for those things? Right. Assuming that she was struggling to pay and it was more expensive than she thought or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, no, 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 no." She said, "It's not like that. These things are just not on sale and I'm not going to buy them." And I was like, okay, maybe. And so I checked out and I was heading to the vehicle and everything. And I saw her out in the parking lot. And I know the vehicle that she was driving was at least $80,000. And it was, I was like, "Oh, okay." She genuinely was not gonna buy the things if they were not on sale. So it wasn't that she couldn't afford it, right? But anyway, funny story. I tried to help and she's like, "No, no, no, I don't need it." And then I saw the fancy pants car that she was driving and I said, "Okay, you're right. You really don't." Um, but I still do beat myself up over the first one. Ellis Fence Company checking in from California. Thanks for being here. Thanks for stopping by. So story number 2. I was driving home and I was kind of it was like that dusky time of day, right? To where it's not quite dark, but it's not quite daylight. And you know, there's like a period in there where it gets a little hard to see into the shadows. And it was that period of day. And so I'm driving along and I noticed there's like a rotten, pretty good sized limb that had fallen out of a tree and it was laying in the road all broken up. And I kind of eased around through it. And right after it, there's a big hill. And I know the road, I drive down it every day. People like to drive fast on that road, right? And so I thought about it. I said, "Man, this limb that has fallen, it's rotten." So it had broken up into a few different pieces, but I mean, the chunks were big enough that if a car came over that hill going 40 or 50 or 60 miles an hour and didn't see it and smashed into it, like it would mess up their vehicle. And so I pulled up to the top of that hill and I was like, "Oh crap, what do I do?" So I just pulled up there, I put my hazards on, and I found the number for the sheriff department dispatch. I called them and I said, "Hey, here's where I am. Here's what's going on. Like, can you send somebody over there?" I said, "I'm going to sit on top of this hill and I'm going to try to slow people down because, when you top the hill, you have not that far before you get to where the limb is laying." Okay. And so I'm sitting up on top of the hill with my hazards on, waiting on vehicles to come the opposite direction. And maybe after like 3 minutes or something like that, a car that was going the same way as me, they pulled over and they stopped down there by it. And then another vehicle going the same way as me, they pulled up and they stopped and they got out and they started moving stuff out of the way, right? So there was two or three of them down there moving the stuff, kind of cleaning up. Well, about this time, a car is coming the opposite direction, like driving towards me, going over the hill the way that I was worried about. And so again, I'm sitting in my truck on top of this hill with the hazard lights flashing, all of this stuff. And so I noticed the cars coming the other way. And I mean, man, I like hang out the window and I'm waving my arms and everything. And I'm not convinced that they even slowed down one bit. And they went over the top of the hill. And of course, they stopped before they ran into the limb. But I mean, there was a couple vehicles sitting there. So it was a little bit easier to see now. And so next thing you know, here comes another car. Same exact thing. I'm hanging out the window, waving my arms at them, all of this stuff, and they just keep going. And again, I don't even know that they slowed down. And so this really confused me, okay? And I'm like, man, what is going on? Like I don't think I'm a scary looking dude. I mean, I live in a fairly rural area of West Tennessee. Like I don't live inside the city of Memphis. And I thought, you know, do we just not care about people like that anymore? Like it, you know, were they or I mean, there is a legitimate thing that happens in the world now where there is a fear for lawsuits, right? So, I mean, if you stop to help somebody and something happens as a result of your stopping or something happens that's really not even related, like, there's a decent chance that you get sued over it. And the thought crossed my mind when I pulled up on top of the hill and turned my hazards lights on. But, I mean, are they just in such a big hurry that they couldn't stop and check on me? Like, that was the thing that kinda shocked me a little bit was like, man, they could have at least stopped and made sure that I wasn't, like, dying in the truck and needed an ambulance or something like that, right? And they didn't. They just and, I mean, I don't know, maybe we just passed by and we're like, "Oh, we're in a hurry, the next person will handle it," right? The next person's got it. The next person's got it. And, I mean, it's crazy to me. So, I think, I think we all just kinda have to slow down and, like, check on fellow humans every now and then, right? And, we know the innocence of children, right? And a few years ago, our son, he was probably like 3 or 4 years old, and he had gotten, some toy toolkit or something like that that was new enough that he still carried it around. And we were going somewhere. I don't remember where we are going, if we were going to some store, if we were going to dinner, where we were headed. But we were headed probably 45 minutes from the house, and we're going through this little town, and there was an old timer over on the side of the road with his tractor. And he had a bush hog connected to the back of his tractor, and he was stopped on the side of the road. And I think he was maybe off the tractor. And so I did this thing, right? I just kind of eased on by and I was like, yeah, he's got something going on, but we're going somewhere. And my son called me out on it. And he said, "Hey, daddy, we need to stop and check on him." And I was like, the conversation was something like, "Okay, what are we going to do for him?" "Oh, man, I got my tools," right? Because he had the little toy toolkit with him. And I was like, "Okay, you're right." And so we went up, we turned around, and we went back and we stopped and we chatted with him for a minute to see what's going on, make sure he's all right and all that. Well, turns out he needed like a pin or some kind of part or something like that for a tractor. And I dug around and didn't have anything that could help him out. But I mean, at least we did stop and check on him. And it was kind of interesting that, like I said, my 3 or 4 year old son saw the guy and was like, "No, you need to stop. What are you doing?" And so we did. We stopped and checked on him, and I thought it was cool that he pointed that out and made me stop. And I'm just guilty like everybody else, right? We're all in a hurry. And even then, like, what was I in a hurry for? Like I said, we were going to eat dinner or we were going to, some shop to get something. It obviously it wasn't that important because I don't remember what it was. Right. I mean, if we were on the way to somewhere important, I would probably remember. But so, story number 3 that I have, and this is the last story. And this one is happened to me Monday, Tuesday this week, which is what led to this podcast episode. If you haven't noticed, I try to talk about things that actually happen in my life. I know sometimes it's not related to the fence industry at all, right? Like, I mean, this is related to humans, and humans are in the fence industry, but it's not about fence. But anyway, it was a thing that happened to me, and I thought it was a cool subject. So I'm driving to work. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a lady or something catches my attention out of the corner of my eye, right? And I look over and there's a lady sitting in the driveway waving her arm. And I mean, she was like, at quick glance, I could tell she was an older lady and something was messed up with her. I don't know what was going on, but there was something messed up with her. And I said, "Okay." And immediately I had the same human reaction, right? Like, I'm on the way to work. I have a meeting scheduled that I'm trying to get to. I mean, I have things to do, but I said, "Nah, there's no way. I can't leave this lady laying in her driveway." Right. So I turn around and I go back. And as I pull up and I park and I get out and start walking over towards her, I see, man, she's all bloody. And I mean, her face all has blood all over it. It's all down her shirt. It's on her arms and her hands. And like, she is bloody. And I said, okay, what are we getting into here? So I ease on over there and start talking to her and, try to see what's going on, what happened, all of this stuff. Well, she had a walker, one of the little walkers with the wheels on it. I don't know. I'd call it a wheelie walker, but that's probably not right. She had one of those that was probably 8 or 10 foot from her, and somehow she had got tangled up and she fell over and apparently just smacked her face right on the concrete because that's where she was bleeding from, was out of her face. And what I immediately noticed was the blood was all dry. Right, so it wasn't fresh. It wasn't like she was actively bleeding as I walked up on her. Shit, it was all dried up, and I mean, so I thought, man, how long had she been laying out here? Right? She she had been there long enough that she had stopped bleeding and it had all dried up. And then I thought, man, how many people have passed by here and haven't done anything? And so now I start getting a bit grumpy. Okay. I'm getting a little bit grumpy about the fact that, like, why I'm the one that's got to do this stuff. Why couldn't somebody else stop by here? Why am I doing this? Blah, 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 blah. And so I started kind of going down that path a little bit. And I mean, as I'm having these thoughts in my mind, I'm actively helping her. Right. And I get her up and here comes her dog, right? So it's probably like a, I don't know, 40-pound dog, 50-pound dog, maybe. It looked kind of like a lab mixed with some other stuff, mutt kind of dog. And it comes running over there. And this Joker is raising Cain. His hair's all stood up, everything, just running full blast. And I'm like, okay. And so now I'm like trying to help her up, trying not to get bit by the dog, which he never did. He just wanted to talk about it, but he never really tried to do anything. So I'm helping her get back to her wheelie walker, and we kind of go through that whole process, right? And I mean, she was super grateful. And she's like, "Oh man, I don't know what I would have done if you didn't stop. I really appreciate you taking the time to help me out. And nobody else was around to help me. And there's another lady in the house, but she's asleep apparently. I don't know. And I normally don't come out here by myself, but I was trying to get something done and all, like I said, all grateful about it, right?" And then she had looked at my shirt and she sees this Memphis Fence Company on my shirt. And she goes, "Oh, God was really looking out for me today." She said, "I was out here because this gate wouldn't work." And I was like, "Oh, man." And so immediately right then it hit me. And I said, "Okay, now I understand. Now I know why it had to be me that stopped." Right? Because I'm probably the only person that's driven by here this day that owns a fence company that has the ability to come out here and fix her problem. And so now I kind of go through this like almost guilt feeling of like, man, here you were complaining because it had to be you. Well, guess what? It had to be you. So it had to be me. Right. And anyway, so she asked, "Hey, can you send somebody out to look at this thing and see what we can do to get it fixed and all this stuff?" And I start calling people. I'm like, "Hey, just let's go fix it." Right. I mean, all we have to do is raise the gate up a little bit. It was a probably 12-foot wide ornamental gate, and it was just dragging on the driveway some. And so we needed to just raise it up so she could get it working. And she did have an operator there, but because it was dragging, the operator wouldn't work. And so I got her gate shut for her, helped her out, got her back in. And then I did once again, I called Shelby County Dispatch, or the county dispatch. Sorry, not Shelby actually. Um, so I called the county dispatch up there and I said, "Hey, can you send somebody over just to do a wellness check?" I was like, "She said she's okay, she seemed fine. She was cognitive. She wasn't like slurring or, confused or anything else like that. She seemed fine, but I just want to make sure. I'm not a medical professional." And so we did all that. And like I said, that was the crazy one to me, right? Is kind of seeing that whole seeing that whole path of my brain going from I don't really want to be doing this to, oh, I have to be the one doing this. Like it is me that I'm the guy that had to stop, right? And so I kind of realized like, helping people, it's not easy and it's not convenient. And it's oftentimes not what we really want to do. But to the person who needs the help, it's everything for them. It's an inconvenience for us, but it's everything to them. Muhammad Ali said, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." And you can't really serve others when it's easy because that's not really service. Like that's more of a convenience, right? And there's a lot of talk about like servant leadership and things of those of the of that nature. And so I thought to myself, if you're like if I were trying to be a servant leader, if I were aspiring to be a servant leader, but I'm actually not willing to be a servant to a stranger, then is my heart really in the right place to even be a servant leader? If I'm going to be a servant to others and perform a service or help or whatever word you want to put in there to others, then I should be able to do it all the time. And I shouldn't have this bitterness about it. Like I should be happy to do that. But alas, I am a human and I do the thing sometimes. I don't always do it, but I try to do it. And I try to have the right mindset and I try to have the right heart for it, but it doesn't always happen because I have flaws. So I think, a thing for me to focus on is really just to kind of like put my mind in the right place when I'm in the situation to help people and do it because I want to do it. Right? Do it because I do it now because I should do it and I know it's the right thing to do, but I don't always want to do it. And so for me, I think that's the piece of it for that I need to focus on is do it more because I want to, not because I know that I should or I know that it's the right thing to do. But actually try to get to where I do it because I want. And that's it. That's the whole show. That was quick. Man, I put these agendas together and I think, "Oh man, all of these words, the show notes that I wrote for this 1611 words." And I do it and I think, "Man, it's going to take a while to get through these 7 pages or whatever it is of all this stuff." And then once you get going, like it sometimes does, sometimes doesn't. But anyway, that's that. So next week, let's talk about something to do with the fence industry, right? We'll talk about I don't know. I know we did the intro piece to blueprints and we kind of started talking about that a little bit. And I believe in that show, I committed to do a takeoff live on the air. And maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll get back into something to do with financials, but we will talk about some fence or business related stuff next week. And I do appreciate you all listening. Thanks for tuning in. And again, if you need some help from me, you can call me. I'm happy to have conversations and give you opinions all day long. And if you have any suggestions or want to be a guest on the show or know somebody who should be a guest, then feel free to shoot that over and we'll do our best. But I thank you all for being here and I'll see you next week.